I woke up under the bed again. That makes 3 nights in a row. I'm not sure how I get there. I'm scared. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Luna. I'm 23 years old and work in home health care. Recently, I took a job taking care of an older bedridden woman, Ms. Kramer. It's 24-hour care, Monday through Friday, in her home, with family members taking care of her on weekends. The pay is good, and I need the money. Student loans, you know? I started the job about 3 weeks ago. I cooked meals, administered her medications, changed bedding, and attended to any other needs. Although Ms. Kramer didn't speak and mostly slept, I still read to her daily or played the oldies station on the radio. By the end of the first week, I had settled into a good rhythm. Ms. Kramer's niece Alice took over her care on Friday at 6 p.m. The weekend came and went, and I was back to work by 8 a.m. Monday morning of the second week. Alice left almost the minute I stepped in the door. She was on her phone, pointed to a note, grabbed her coffee cup, and out the door she went, leaving me slightly annoyed. There were 4 things scribbled on the note. 1. Ms. Kramer still needs to eat breakfast. 2. I didn't have time to give her meds this morning. 3. Give her a bath. And 4. Please don't rummage through her belongings. I sighed and got to work. After Ms. Kramer's morning routine was done, I sat down at the kitchen table with coffee, while Ms. Kramer napped. I grabbed the note and read it again. Number 4. Please don't rummage through her belongings. I wasn't sure why she wrote number 4. I only went in spaces as discussed in the interview. And I never go through patients' private belongings. I brushed it off, thinking it was just a reminder. That Tuesday night, around 10 p.m., I slipped into Ms. Kramer's room to check on her. She was sleeping peacefully in the dimly lit room. But as I began to close the door, something on the floor near her bed glittered from the light in the hallway. My fingers gripped the tiny chain and held it up. It was a heart-shaped locket, dented and scuffed. I placed it on her bedside table, then settled in my own room for the night. It wasn't long before I was asleep. That was the night I started having strange dreams. They weren't scary dreams, at least not at first. Just flashes, beautiful moments in time. A picnic on a warm summer day, colorful balloons floating in a blue sky, a crowded train station, even a tiny white kitten. But in every dream there was this music, the same quiet melody in the background, a tune I had never heard before. On Friday of the second week, Alex, Ms. Kramer's nephew, showed up an hour and a half late, reeking of cigarettes. He barely acknowledged me as he scrolled through his phone when I updated him on Ms. Kramer's week. Then, he pulled out a pack of cigarettes. I mentioned the locket I found and put on the bedside table and added, smoking outside or in the garage would be best for Ms. Kramer's health. He sighed and said, "You can go now." So I left. When I pulled up to the house on Monday of the third week, Alex was sitting on the front steps smoking. He stood up when he saw me get out of my car. He looked like hell, if I'm being honest. His face looked haggard, but relieved to see me. He slung a dirty backpack over his shoulder and said, "She's all yours now." Before I could ask about Ms. Kramer's weekend, Alex was speeding out of the driveway. The house was a mess. Dirty dishes in the sink, a pizza box on the floor next to the overflowing trash can. It smelled like stale beer and pizza farts. It took the better part of the day to clean the house after Ms. Kramer's needs were taken care of. By bedtime, I was exhausted, ready for a good night's sleep. Well, that didn't happen. It was the dreams. They were different this time. Dark, cold, scary. It was like I was floating through Ms. Kramer's house. Everything was dark and hazy, and the air felt thick. As I drifted down the hallway, I saw a man in a gray suit. He brought his finger to his lips, like he was warning me to be quiet. His face was serious, impatient. He pointed to the door of my bedroom, and it opened. I could see myself lying on the bed, my chest slowly rising and falling as I slept. We entered the room, stopping next to my bed. He pointed to the bed, trying to speak, but no words came out. Seeing my confusion, his face became agitated. I stepped back, ready to flee the room, but suddenly, I could hear the music from previous dreams. Quietly at first, muffled. The man in the gray suit stopped, caught off guard. He could hear the music too. He pointed to the bed again. Then there was this flash, a quick spark. When I woke up, I was under the bed. Not all the way, just my top half. I scrambled backwards, pulling my head out from under the metal bed frame. I sat in the middle of my bedroom floor, trying to gather my thoughts, my heart racing. The rest of that day was challenging. Ms. Kramer woke up with a fever. She barely ate, sleeping even more than usual. I tried calling Alice several times, but it went to voicemail. Later that night, Alice finally sent me a text that said, "There's nothing I can do from here. Use your best judgment." Luckily, the fever finally broke around 10 p.m., but it seemed to have taken something from Ms. Kramer. She seemed smaller, weaker. I sat with her for a while before going to sleep around midnight. That was the second time I saw him. The man in the gray suit was sitting near the foot of my bed, holding a pink carnation. This time his face was weary and sad. He turned to me, trying to speak again. But only faint, airy whispers came out. When I tried to tell him I couldn't understand him, he stood, screaming in silence. He tossed the carnation on the bed before turning and walking out of my room. Then there was that flash again. This time it was brighter. I woke up under the bed, all the way under this time. Stunned, I shimmied my way back out. I sat on the side of my bed, trembling. I had no idea what was going on. Sleepwalking? I doubt it. It's never happened to me before. The house felt strange that day, oddly still and quiet. I wandered up and down the hall, into the kitchen and around the table. Things felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. In the evening, I sat in Ms. Kramer's room, ready to read from the book we had been working on. I opened the book and something slipped out, landing on my lap. It was the locket. The same one I found on the floor. The one I left on her bedside table. I gripped the locket, finding it oddly warm. After reading to Ms. Kramer, I once again set the locket on her bedside table and shut the door. Although I was exhausted on so many levels, I dreaded going to sleep, fearful for what may happen. I couldn't resist for long. Sleep claimed me, and I found out the gray suit man had one more message to send. At first, I didn't know I was dreaming. I sat up in bed, my room full of unfamiliar shadows. Then the air became thick again, making my eyes water and my throat dry. I got out of bed, reaching for the light switch. Then something from under the bed grabbed my foot. I yelped, stumbled backwards, falling and landing on my backside. It was the man in the gray suit. He crawled out from under the bed, mouthing the same word over and over. He pulled himself up and stood above me. I was frozen in terror. He pointed at the bed again, and that's when I actually heard him speak. It was one word, and this time it was loud.
"Hide!"
Then it turned pitch black. And flash. I woke up under the bed again. It was Thursday morning. That made 3 nights in a row. I was scared. But what was I going to do? I don't think Alice or Alex would listen to a crazy lady, afraid of a scary man under the bed. Plus, I had a job to do. Ms. Kramer needed me. I just needed to make it through one more night until the weekend. I spent most of Thursday at Ms. Kramer's side. Even though her strength seemed wiped out, her face held a sweet smile as she slept. Other than that, the rest of the day was uneventful. But that night was quite the opposite. I sat up in bed, reading a random book, just something to keep me from falling asleep. I must have dozed off, because around midnight, there was a loud clatter from the kitchen. I was startled, almost dropping the book on the floor. I stood up, ready to investigate the noise, but something stopped me. It was the air. It was becoming thick, like in my dreams. It smelled like smoke, cigarette smoke. Alex. I shut my bedroom light off and slowly, quietly opened my door, just a crack. I could see Alex digging through a shelf in the living room. He was stuffing items into his dirty backpack. This idiot was stealing from his dying aunt. I held my breath and gently closed the door. I shuffled back to the bed in the darkness. My hands searched the blankets for my phone. I texted Alice, briefly letting her know what was going on and that I was calling the police. Before I could dial 911, I heard footsteps. Alex was heading toward the hallway and my room. I dropped to my knees and scurried under the bed just as Alex flung the bedroom door open. He paused in the doorway before flipping the light on. "I know you're in here," he said, blowing smoke into the room. "You could have just minded your own business," he continued. I could see his old worn tennis shoes as he strolled over to the closet. His voice became irritated. "It's not like the old lady needs this stuff anymore," he said as he popped open the closet door. He chuckled. "Well, there's only one other place you can be." He moved to the bed and sat down. He dropped his cigarette to the floor, putting it out with his shoe. Then, all at once, his hands were under the bed, grabbing and searching for me. I stuffed my feet into the metal bed frame, wrapped my fingers around the side railing, and pulled my body slightly up and off the floor. His movements became frantic as he continued to locate me. My hands shook as I held on. I almost gave up. But that's when I could hear the police sirens. They were getting louder. Alex heard them too. He grabbed his backpack and left the room. I heard the back door slam as he left the house. Alex was greeted outside by the police, and Alice. Alice had gotten my text and called 911. While the police took care of Alex, Alice apologized to me for thinking I was the one going through Ms. Kramer's things, when it was actually Alex. When Alice and I checked on Ms. Kramer, we found she had passed sometime during the night. Her face was peaceful, the little smile still there. Her hands were folded on her chest, holding the locket. Alice took the locket, holding back tears. This was her favorite thing in the whole world, she said, her voice cracking. She pulled a small wooden box from a nearby shelf, and when she opened it up, there was music, the music from the dreams. It quietly filled the room. Alice pulled a picture out of the little box. It was a picture of a young Miss Kramer. She was smiling and holding pink carnations, and she was standing next to a man in a gray suit.